Have you ever spent hours reading a textbook, highlighting every other sentence in bright neon colors, and copying down pages of perfectly formatted notes? You close the book, feeling an absolute sense of mastery. You feel like a genius. But then, the next morning, you sit down for an exam, look at the very first question, and your mind is a complete terrifying blank. You didn't forget the information. The harsh scientific truth is you never actually learned it in the first place. What you experienced is a well-documented psychological trap known as the illusion of competence. As human beings, we constantly confuse the ease of reading a text with the actual mastery of understanding it. When you look at a highlighted fact on a page, your brain quickly recognizes it. The recognition releases a tiny hit of dopamine, tricking you into thinking, "I know this, I have it memorized." But recognition is not recall. Recognizing a familiar concept when it's right in front of your eyes is vastly different from being able to retrieve it from your own memory under pressure. Today we are going to completely dismantle the way you study. We are going to look under the hood at the exact cognitive architecture of the human brain and explore the scientifically proven, peer-reviewed methods to learn absolutely anything, faster, deeper, and permanently. Welcome to the architecture of learning. To understand how to actually learn, we first have to understand how the brain processes information. Most of us treat our brains like a computer hard drive. We think if we just stay at a page long enough, the data will be saved. But the brain doesn't work that way. It's a dynamic processing center. Cognitive psychology explains this through the information processing model, which breaks learning down into three highly distinct stages. Stage 1 is encoding. This is the input phase. It's what happens when you are listening to a lecture, watching a documentary, or reading a chapter. Your brain is translating sensory input into a language it can understand. Stage 2 is storage. This is where the brain attempts to hold on to that encoded information, moving it from your fragile short-term working memory, hoping to secure it in your long-term memory. But here is the absolute biggest trap in the modern education system. Students spend 90% of their time and energy on encoding. They just keep trying to force the information in. They reread, they highlight, they listen to lectures over and over and over and over. The true magic of learning, the actual biological process that creates a permanent memory, doesn't happen when information goes in. It happens in stage 3. Stage 3 is retrieval. Learning is entirely about how effectively you can pull information back out of your brain. Every single time you force yourself to remember something without looking at the answer, you are physically altering your brain. You are strengthening the neural pathway and thickening the myelin sheath around those neurons. If you do not practice pulling information out, those neural pathways weaken, and the memory simply dies. Encoding is useless without retrieval. Now you might be asking yourself, if retrieval is the key, why is it so incredibly hard? Why does the brain let go of information so quickly after we just read it? In the late 19th century, a German psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus conducted a groundbreaking study on human memory. He discovered a terrifying biological reality known as forgetting curve. Ebbinghaus proved that without any active deliberate intervention, your brain will forget approximately 70% of new information within the first 24 hours. Let that sink in. 70% of your hard work and effort completely wiped out in a single day. Why? Because the human brain is an ultimate energy-saving machine. It constantly filters and clears out data that deems unnecessary to make room for survival mechanism. If you only read a chapter once, your brain assumes it's not important for your survival, so it deletes it. But we can hack this system. We can stop this massive data purge using a scientifically proven method called spaced repetition. Spaced repetition dictates that you should not review information every single day. Instead, you review it at gradually increasing intervals. You review it after 1 day, then 3 days, then a week, then a month. The secret here is timing. You have to force your brain to retrieve the information right at the exact moment it is about to forget it. The struggle of remembering it, that specific moment, sends a massive, undeniable signal to your hippocampus, the brain's memory center, telling it, this information is absolutely essential for my survival, keep it forever. So what exactly should you be doing during those spaced review sessions? Reading your notes? Staring at your new highlights? Absolutely not. This is where we introduce the single most efficient study technique ever discovered by cognitive science: active recall, also known in the literature as the testing effect. You see, rereading is a completely passive activity. It requires almost zero cognitive effort from your brain. Active recall, on the other hand, is the deliberate, conscious act of forcing your brain to retrieve a piece of information from scratch without looking at the answer. You close the book, you put away your tablet, and now you ask yourself a tough question. When you struggle to remember a fact, it might feel incredibly frustrating. You might feel like you are failing or that you are just not smart enough. But neurologically speaking, that frustration is the exact feeling of your brain growing. The harder your brain works to retrieve a memory, the thicker the myelin sheath around that neural pathway becomes. The struggle isn't a sign of failure. The struggle is the very biological mechanism that locks the information permanently into your long-term memory. Now that you know exactly how to retrieve information, we need to talk about how you must structure your actual study sessions. Most students practice something called blocking. Studying one single object, like only vocabulary, for 5 hours straight. It feels productive, but cognitive science suggests a much better, albeit harder way: interleaving. Interleaving is the practice of mixing different but related topics in a single study session. Instead of studying just one chapter of history for 3 hours, you mix it with a chapter of economics, or alternate between linguistic theories and cognitive psychology. Why? Because real life and real exams do not test you in isolated, neatly organized blocks. Interleaving forces your brain to constantly adapt. It trains you to recognize underlying patterns and creates a highly flexible problem-solving intellect. Now combine this structural shift with dual coding theory. Our brains process verbal information and visual information through two completely separate independent channels. When you just read text, you are only using one channel. When you combine words with a visual representation, like sketching a quick mind map, drawing a timeline, or even a simple diagram while you study, You encode the exact same information in two different places in your brain at the exact same time. You literally double your chances of remembering it. Finally, after you encode, retrieve, and interleave your information, how do you absolutely prove to yourself that you have truly mastered a complex subject? You apply the Feynman Technique, named after the brilliant Nobel Prize winning physicist Richard Feynman. The technique is remarkably simple, yet brutally effective. Take a blank piece of paper, write a concept at the top, and explain it out loud, or in writing, as if you are teaching it to a 10-year-old child. There is only one strict rule. You are not allowed to use academic jargon, buzzwords, or complex vocabulary. Why? Because jargon is often a mask we use to hide our own ignorance. When you force yourself to simplify a concept, you immediately expose your own blind spots. You see exactly where your knowledge breaks down. If you can't explain it simply, you simply don't understand it well enough. True knowledge isn't about memorizing dictionary definitions. It is about building mental models, frameworks of understanding that allow you to navigate the world, make better decisions, and connect ideas across completely different disciplines. But remember this crucial biological fact before we finish. None of these techniques, active recall, spaced repetition, or interleaving, will work if you ignore your own biology. The actual physical process of memory consolidation, transferring data into your long-term memory, happens entirely while you sleep. And deep comprehension requires long, uninterrupted periods of deep work, completely free from your phone and digital distractions. Learning is not a passive event. It is an active, demanding, and incredibly rewarding architectural process. Stop reading. Start retrieving. Build your mind. I'll see you in the next one.